the Vatican. It conjures up these images of St. Peter's Basilica, right? The Pope, this, global center of faith.
Absolutely. Grandeur, tradition. But
then you peel back that sort of gilded surface, and you start hearing these whispers, don't you? Whispers of hidden truths, intrigue.
Exactly. Centuries of it, really. Which leads to this fascinating question.
Could some of humanity's biggest mysteries, the answers we're always looking for, maybe not be buried in some desert, but locked away right there inside the Vatican?
That's the hook, isn't it? And right at the center of that idea is the Vatican Apostolic Archive.
Formerly the Secret Archive, that name alone.
Oh, definitely. But it's so much more than just storage. It's like the memory of Western civilization, 12 centuries worth.
It's staggering. 85 kilometers of shelves. Just think about that.
Yeah.
So our mission here, for you listening, is to dive into that. What's really behind those gates? What kind of secrets are we talking about?
Yeah.
And maybe try to untangle the facts from, well, the fiction.
It's a big task. Where do you even begin with something that vast?
Well, let's start at the beginning. How did this massive collection even come about?
It really takes shape in the early 17th century. We're talking Pope Paul V.
Okay.
Around 1612, he decided, look, we need to centralize all these documents floating around the Holy See.
So a practical move initially. Get things organized.
Pretty much. Gather everything up, stuff from Castel Sant'Angelo, ancient scrolls, the works, and put it in one place. They called it the New Archive.
Right. But then the name changed. It became more mysterious.
It did. First to the Apostolic Archive, and then the big one in 1646, Archivum Secretum Vaticanum.
The Vatican Secret Archive. And that word secretum.
Yeah, that's where the popular imagination really takes off. We hear secret and think deliberately hidden, concealed knowledge.
But that wasn't the original meaning.
Not exactly. In Latin, in that context, secretum meant private.
Wow.
As in the Pope's personal archive, his private papers, separate from, say, public church records.
Okay, that makes more sense. But the ambiguity stuck.
Definitely. It fed the mystique for centuries. It wasn't until 2019, actually.
Oh, recently.
Yeah. Pope Francis changed it back to the Vatican Apostolic Archive. Officially, anyway.
Trying to signal more openness, maybe?
That seems to be the idea. Promote transparency. Though changing the name doesn't really shrink the 85 kilometers of shelves, does it?
Not at all. And the history itself hasn't always been smooth sailing for the archive, which probably adds to the mystery. Doesn't a lot of stuff get lost at one point?
Oh, a huge amount. The archive's history is pretty dramatic. The biggest hit came during Napoleon's time.
Right, when he occupied Rome.
Exactly. Starting around 1810, Napoleon basically commandeered the archives. Over 3,200 crates were shipped off to Paris.
Wow.
And then when they were supposed to be returned after Napoleon's fall between 1815 and 1817, well, it was chaos and expensive to ship everything back.
So some just didn't make it.
A lot didn't.
Yeah.
Estimates suggest maybe a quarter, even up to a third of the archive's contents were just gone. Destroyed, sold off for scrap paper, lost in transit.
A third. Imagine the history just erased. What stories vanished then?
We'll never know for sure. It's a massive gap. And even with that loss, the scale today is still, frankly, mind-boggling.
85 kilometers. You said it's like the distance between Prague and Fredek Králové.
Roughly, yeah. Just row after row after row. Inside, you've got something like 35,000 bound volumes.
35,000.
And millions upon millions of individual documents, parchments, papers. The oldest surviving piece is from 809 AD.
Incredible. All the way up to the 20th century.
That's right. A continuous record, more or less.
And it's not all just sitting in ancient, dusty rooms, is it? I read about a modern facility.
Correct. While some parts are in the historic Apostolic Palace, a lot of the really crucial, fragile stuff is underground.
Underground.
Yep. Since 1980, there's been a 2-story, climate-controlled bunker built beneath the Cortile della Pina, the Pinecone Courtyard.
State-of-the-art, I assume.
Completely. Temperature, humidity, all tightly controlled to preserve delicate materials, plus, serious security.
Right. So we know some things are definitely in there. Official treasures.
Yeah, things like the Privilegium Attonianum from 962,
Right.
Really key for papal authority.
And the Liber Diurnis Romanorum Pontificum.
That too. And those 81 parchments with gold seals. Very impressive stuff.
Definitely important history,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the stuff they tell us about.
Exactly. That's the question that always hangs in the air.
Right.
What else is down there? What aren't we seeing?
And even the known documents.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty explosive, hinting at major controversies.
Oh, absolutely. Take the Galileo trial
The
record.
complete record.
It's a whole thing. That's not just about stars. It's a fundamental clash, science versus church doctrine, a fight that echoed for centuries.
And what about that massive scroll about the Knights Templar, 60 meters long?
Incredible, isn't it? A primary source on their interrogation. Talk about a mysterious group.
Absolutely. And then there's really personal, poignant stuff like Mary Queen of Scots' last letter.
Yeah, her desperate appeal to Pope Sixtus V right before her execution. You can almost feel the history.
Or the papal bull excommunicating Martin Luther. One piece of paper that changed the world.
Irrevocably split Western Christianity. The impact is immense.
And it goes beyond just religion, too. The English lords asking to annul Henry VIII's marriage.
Leading directly to the English Reformation.
Yeah.
Even Michelangelo complaining about not getting paid for the Sistine Chapel.
Yes, it brings these huge historical figures down to earth a bit. Shows their everyday concerns.
And it's global, too. You mentioned a letter from an indigenous tribe.
That's right, a thank you letter from the Ojibwe tribe, written on birch bark, shows the church's reach.
And even early tech. Drawings of a flying machine.
Bartolomeo de Guzmán, early 18th century, predating the Wright brothers significantly. Really fascinating stuff.
It's an absolutely stunning collection, but like you said, these are just glimpses.
The tip of the iceberg, really,
Right.
and it suggests there could be so much more. Which brings us to, well, the flip side of preserving knowledge.
Controlling it.
Exactly. Which leads us to the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the list of forbidden books. The archive's dark counterpart, as some call it.
A good way to put it. It was formally set up in 1559 by Pope Paul IV.
Why then, specifically?
It was really a reaction to two major forces. The printing press.
Making ideas spread much faster.
Way faster and harder to control. And of course, the Protestant Reformation, which was challenging church authority head-on.
So the church saw the index as, what, a defense mechanism? Protecting the faithful from dangerous ideas?
That was the official justification, yes. Shielding people from heresy, from things deemed morally corrupting.
But there's another way to look at it, obviously.
Of course. Many saw it simply as censorship. A tool to suppress ideas, scientific discoveries, philosophical arguments, anything that questioned the church's power or teachings.
And the list of authors who ended up on it is, well, it's like a who's who of Western thought.
It really is. Erasmus, Machiavelli, Rabelais.
Even scientists like Copernicus and Galileo for saying the Earth went around the sun.
Their heliocentric writings, yes, banned. Giordano Bruno's works, too, and he was burned at the stake.
It's chilling. And Enlightenment thinkers.
Oh, yeah. Voltaire, Diderot, Rousseau, all on the list. Even novelists like Victor Hugo and Alexander Dumas later on.
Wow. It makes you wonder, what progress was stalled?
Yeah.
What ideas were stifled because of this?
It's impossible to quantify, but the impact must have been huge. And this wasn't a short-lived thing.
It lasted for centuries, right?
4 centuries, constantly updated, until 1966.
What happened then?
After the Second Vatican Council, a period of modernization for the Church, Pope Paul VI officially abolished the index.
So, a clear break with the past, a move towards intellectual freedom.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Was it a genuine change of heart, an embrace of freedom of conscience, or was it more pragmatic? A recognition that in the modern information age, trying to ban books was, frankly, impossible and made the church look outdated.
The index had lost its teeth, maybe.
Possibly. And, even though the official index is gone, that history makes you ask.
If there's still a kind of unofficial silent index, ideas that are discouraged, research that's not pursued.
It's a thought that lingers. That history of control doesn't just disappear overnight. And that control, or perceived control, extends to accessing the archive itself, even today.
Right. Despite the name change back to Apostolic Archive, getting in is still tough.
Very tough. Pope Leo III opened it up a bit way back in 1881, and Pope Francis recently released files related to Pius XII and World War II.
Which is a big deal.
A very big deal. But generally, access is tightly controlled. You need to be a serious academic researcher.
Like postdoctoral level.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
At least 5 years experience, specific training in archival work. You need a detailed research plan approved in advance.
And you can't just browse, I take it.
Definitely not. Your time is limited, and they limit the number of researchers per day, usually around 60 or so.
Okay, preservation is obviously a valid concern with such old documents.
Absolutely. You have to protect them.
But such strict control, does it also serve to manage the narrative? Control who sees what and what gets interpreted.
That's the suspicion it fuels, inevitably. This mix of historical secrecy and restricted access is perfect breeding ground for, well, legends.
And conspiracy theories, lots of them.
Oh, tons. When information is limited, people fill the gaps. And some theories are wild.
Like what? What are the big ones?
Well, a classic one is undiscovered gospels, texts that didn't make it into the Bible, maybe showing a different side of Jesus or early Christianity.
Things about, say, Jesus being married or having descendants, stuff that would shake the foundations.
Exactly that kind of thing. Or alternative accounts of key events, always popular theories.
Okay, what else? Anything more out there?
Oh, yeah. How about evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations?
ETs in the Vatican archives.
Seriously.
People point to things like supposedly strange skulls found in Vatican collections back in '98, or they interpret vague statements by Vatican astronomers as hints.
Right, and then there are the mythical artifacts, aren't there? Always. The Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, pieces of the True Cross. Legends persist that they're hidden away somewhere in the Vatican vaults.
Objects of immense power and mystery.
And then there's the story of Father Ernetti and his chronovisor.
The time viewer.
Yeah.
That sounds like science fiction.
It does. He claimed he built a device that could tune into the past, said he'd watched the Last Supper, the crucifixion.
Wow. I mean, scientifically it sounds impossible, but
But the idea is irresistible, isn't it? Imagine if the Vatican did have something like that. What could they know?
okay, so those are maybe the more out there theories. What about more grounded concerns, things related to known history?
Right. There are persistent theories about concealed documents related to darker chapters.
Like the Inquisition.
Details about the Inquisition, yeah. Or the Vatican's role during World War II, especially concerning Nazi Germany. That's a big one, especially around Pope Pius XII.
And financial dealings. The Vatican Bank has had its share of scandals.
Exactly. Theories about hidden financial records. And very sadly and importantly, ongoing concerns about documents related to the cover-up of clerical abuse cases.
Which feels less like conspiracy theory and more like a demand for accountability.
Precisely. And it all comes back to that core question. If there's nothing controversial to hide, especially on these more recent sensitive issues, why not allow full, independent access?
The restrictions fuel the suspicion. And popular culture hasn't exactly dampened the flames, has it?
Not at all. Think of Dan Brown's books, Angels and Demons, The Da Vinci Code.
Huge bestsellers.
Reached millions, and they really blur the lines for many people between historical possibility and outright fiction regarding Vatican secrets. Definitely boosted public curiosity.
Has the Vatican responded to that kind of popular interest beyond just denying the fictional stuff?
They have made some moves. There have been occasional exhibitions showcasing archive treasures, and the big thing is the digitization project.
Right, scanning the documents. Started back in 2010.
Yeah. The official goals are preservation, creating digital backups, and making materials more accessible online for researchers worldwide.
Which sounds like a positive step towards openness.
On the surface, yes, absolutely. But,
There's always a but with the archives, isn't there?
well, a skeptic might ask, does digitization also offer a way to subtly curate the collection?
Meaning?
Meaning, could certain documents, perhaps inconvenient ones, get overlooked in the scanning process or just not prioritized? It raises new questions about information control in the digital age.
So even efforts towards openness can be viewed with suspicion. It really is an enduring enigma.
It truly is this incredible, frustrating place, a gigantic repository of human history filled with priceless documents.
But still shrouded in so much secrecy, restriction, and speculation.
The moves towards digitization and releasing some files like the Pius XII papers are genuinely important steps.
But they don't erase centuries of cultivated mystery or answer all the questions.
Not by a long shot. And they raise new questions about digital access and control.
So we're left wondering, aren't we? Do those 85 kilometers of shelves really hold history-altering, faith-shattering secrets?
Or are the legends mostly just projections? Our own fascination with the unknown, maybe our distrust of powerful, long-lasting institutions?
It makes you think. Maybe the real forbidden book, the ultimate secret, isn't an actual ancient text hidden away somewhere.
What then?
Maybe it's just the complex, messy, uncomfortable truth about power, history, and human actions that any institution, especially one as old and influential as the Vatican, might hesitate to fully expose.
That's a powerful thought. The archive then becomes a symbol.
Yeah, a symbol of that constant tension between the desire to know the need for transparency.
And the instinct to control the narrative, to keep some things in the shadows. The light of knowledge versus the mystery.
Something for all of you to ponder, definitely.